This segment has been sponsored by Pro Bikes Caribe. Pro Bikes Caribe, get yours today. Before we get into today's interview, hear a little bit about the book from the author themselves.
Hi, my name is Omega Francis. I am from Trinidad and Tobago, and I am the author of Through Her Eyes. This book is a collection of stories that delve into difficult themes of sexuality, postpartum depression, familial struggles, and identity. My book can be found on Amazon in Kindle and hard copy format.
Greetings, listenership. Welcome to TLC, Tropical Literature Creators, the podcast where we interview authors of Caribbean heritage about themselves and about their literary works. Some of them you've heard of, and some of them you'll be hearing about soon here. Today we have with us the original Omega Francis. Omega, welcome to Tropical Literature Creators.
Thank you so much for having me. It is an honor to be here today.
Okay, well, thank you for agreeing to be interviewed, Miss Francis.
Yes.
Miss Francis, which Caribbean island do you hail from?
Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, there's usually a scenario that I give to persons who I host on the program. The scenario is this. Imagine we encounter each other at Piaco International Airport. I am coming to Trinidad for the very first time. What would you recommend that I try when it is I visit sweet Trinidad and Tobago?
That might be a little bit hard, but I think instantly I would think we should go and get some coconut water. Fresh coconut water. You can't go wrong with that.
It
Because
makes sense. It makes sense.
that, that, that,
I'll be parched after a long flight,
yeah,
nothing refreshes you like some good old coconut water from Trinidad and Tobago.
yes. And of course, to top it off, just a little sweet treat, I would say, you do some fudge or sugar cake, something like that, just to, kind of give yourself a little pick-me-up after such a long plane ride. I assume you would be having, so that would be a great starter to Trinidad and Tobago.
No, that sounds sensible. We've got to be properly hydrated and the energy levels must be at a particular level to continue. That's very,
Yes.
yes. I see where you're coming from. I see where you're coming. All right, Miss Francis, in terms of your writings, there are two books well, rather one book in particular and another line of books that you would have written that would have come to my attention. The first is Through Her Eyes, and the other is Raw. First, give me some details about Through Her Eyes.
Okay, Through Her Eyes is a collection of short stories. This collection actually came out of my Masters of Fine Arts creative writing that I did at the University of the West Indies at St. Augustine. It was my manuscript that I did there for the entire program. And it's a collection of 10 stories, and generally it focuses on some hard topics that I do think that a lot of people don't necessarily like to speak on, but I think needs to be spoken about more. Things like postpartum depression, sexuality, abuse, familial struggles, things like that are not necessarily unique experiences, but I think I tried to look at it from the perspective of a Caribbean person. And I thought that it were necessary topics to sort of interrogate, because, again, the topics tend to be things that are swept under the rug, but necessarily need to be put in the spotlight so that we can deal with it well.
No, I like that. And I like it because, and I'm not knocking authors of other genres, but a lot of authors who I talk to, they do children's books, and there's nothing wrong with children's books. But I like how it is that the stories that you tackle, the topics that you tackle, that they're not easily conversations that are had, and more so in the Caribbean. And here it is, you have writings here that give voice to some of these topics that are difficult to broach. If it is I myself, had difficulty, or had to face some of these topics or have conversations about some of these things, it's really good that I have something like a writing like yours, a collection of stories written by yourself that I could go to, that I could refer to, and have some ideas to, that would just put me in a frame of mind to address or approach topics like this.
Yes, and I wanted also to do it from the perspective of a woman, the female perspective. So the all of the main characters in each of the stories are female, and I think it was necessary to do it like that for me, being a woman myself, and knowing that in a lot of cases, a lot of these cases on these topics, there is an understanding of sorts that the female voice tends to be quieted than to be hushed. So I needed to write all these stories from a female perspective to sort of give the reader the insight into how a woman may be going through this, how they would be experiencing these things, you know?
No, I like that. I like the fact that again, it's not just an outlet for your voice, for your sayings, for your perspective, but also we get to understand the inner workings of another individual on topics and themes such as this.
Yes. The other collection of stories that I have is it's Raw, and this one is, you know, as we speak on one hard topic with truer eyes, or topics with truer eyes. I mean, this one is actually sort of a experiment for me, or started off as an experiment for me, and it's an erotic collection, and I know that sex and sexuality also is something that people don't like to talk about in so-called polite conversation. But I wanted to write stories that made the characters not feel ashamed that of in whatever encounter that they were having. So it's more of a celebration of that, different types of relationships, not all, of course, because as I said, it was somewhat of an experiment, and there are, along with stories, there are poems in this as well. And some of the poems I would have written years before I wrote some of these stories. So it's a start, and I did enjoy writing it, and so far the friends and persons who have read it have actually enjoyed the perspective on how I treated with the subject matter.
I mean, the topics that you've chosen, you identify that they're not topics that persons usually and commonly address. Do you
Yeah.
make a habit of like tackling hard topics or hard subjects?
I I think I I do to some extent, because I often see, you know, how people relate to each other online versus how they relate to each other in real life, and people seem to be a little bit more open when there's some level of anonymity online versus if you're face to face with someone. And I have always wondered, why should we not have that feeling of why should we have that feeling of shame to speak about topics, even though they're hard? Yes, a lot of them are hard, some of them a little bit uncomfortable, but I think that I like to kind of push the envelope a bit in certain circumstances, be like, why don't we talk about this? Why, you know, if somebody just even hints at something, let's talk about it, because I like the idea of making people see something from a new perspective and being comfortable in how they experience different things in their life, being comfortable to speak to other people, because that's how we also find our community as well. And I think that's a big thing that has been lacking for a lot of people, and that's why they tend to be a little bit more open online. We're seeking community online. So while we're doing that online, I think we should also have those conversations offline and seek community offline through some of these hard topics.
Well said.
Thank you. Yeah.
You indicate that some of these writings of yours began as an experiment, or as in
Mhm,
the case with Through Her Eyes, when it is that you were pursuing your qualifications in securing a master's in fine
mhm,
arts. Trinidad and Tobago traditionally is an island that thrives in the energy sector. So persons traditionally would go on pursue areas of study as it relates to the energy sector, petroleum engineering, for
mhm.
example. Why did you choose to pursue a master's in fine arts?
Well, writing has always been something that has been close to me. I have been writing since I knew myself, you know. I was one of those teens who, when the literature teacher said, you all have to write a story, I would be happy and everybody would groan. I'd be happy, ready to go. You know, I even still have some of those stories that I written form 3, form 4, you know, that kind of thing. So, and it's always been something I've done. I've also done a lot of journaling, you know, because it's a way for me to communicate and to feel as well. You know, it helps me to rationalize and work through events, emotions, things like that. And so my first degree is in communication studies with a minor in psychology, but I really did want to. I've always had in the back of my mind, you know, I want to be an author. I want to be an author. And when I saw the Masters in Fine Arts, I said I needed to do this. It was something I absolutely had to do.
Uh, with the qualifications that you've had in fine arts, and you just mentioned communications, are you an author full time?
Not full time, but I do write as well. I do actually freelance a lot of my work. It's mainly social media management. However, I write articles and anything as well, and I do editing services. So my writing does and qualifications in communication studies, they all kind of come together in what I do every day.
Your qualifications sound very interesting and they sound very useful to your
Yeah.
profession as an author. The reason I bring that up is because, again, talking with other authors, a lot of them indicate that they would have had to gain certain skills over time. At first,
Mm.
they were thinking they just wrote the book and that would be the end of the story. That's a fairy tale. But
Yeah.
but in real life, and I guess you'll be able to attest that after you write the book, you know, you have to market, you have to promote, and all the things associated with it to get the book
Mhm.
out. And over time, you have to gain a number of skills. And your skill set, it sounds interesting because a lot of the skills that authors describe that they have to hone and to learn, it sounds that you would have been trained in these things, social media management, because a lot of them have to promote their book socially. Um,
Yeah.
Writing, and it sounds like you do a lot of writing as well. And
Yes.
here it is, you talk about editing services. Uh, did you have to edit your own work, or did you have
Yeah.
to get someone else to do it?
I edited it myself. Yes.
So you
I
wrote,
did.
mhm.
Yeah, I did the entire process. From writing and editing to going through. As I have my books on Amazon, I went through the entire process of that editing process that you put on Kindle and all of that I did for myself. Yeah,
So your books are entirely self-published,
pretty much. Yeah.
where in terms of the process, is it something that you had to learn yourself, or did someone teach you to do the self-publishing aspect?
I had to learn it for myself. I just I before these two books, I actually self-published a collection of poetry years ago, and that that was a sort of learn as I go situation, because at that point I did not have a master's in anything. I did not even actually I had not even done my first degree at that point. So it was new, just diving in headfirst and learning as I went along.
Yeah, I see a recurring theme with with your education, with your writing. One of the first things you indicated that, when you were doing the first book, it was an experiment.
Yeah,
With the second book, you wanted to try something. So again, you experimented. And here it is,
yeah,
we're talking about self-publishing and you're experimenting again. So
yeah.
so maybe it's something it's a quality that you have innately, that you're just curious or you just want to experiment and see how to understand how things work. Maybe that's the psychology studies that you were talking about there at work as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I also like the idea of being close to the process as
Mhm.
well. So the only thing I really outsource, which is out of my skill set, are my covers, book covers, the artwork on the covers. So but with stuff like that, even I would send what I would like. I want this picture or do this, etc. So it will be a back and forth to make sure that what I want is understood, and if it's a right fit and all these different things. I like the fact that I am close to it and I
Mhm.
know what is going on at every step. And I think that's why I also, and I mean, truthfully, it's, even if in the future everything would be outsourced, I get commercially published, etc. I still would like to know what the process is, because I always think that it's good to be close to that and not completely put it in the hands of somebody else, just in case the final product is not exactly what you want, but they've reached to the final product and you don't know anything what was happening before that. So I like to be close to the process along the way.
Well said, well said. Interestingly enough, I was going to ask if you had a background in graphic design, etc. But when you said you outsourced it, I guess you answered my question there.
Yeah. I did one training course in Photoshop and Illustrator some years ago, but it didn't stick. So I said that, leave that to the professionals.
Okay. But in terms of the cover for the book, let's just use Through Her Eyes as an example. Where'd you get the
Mhm.
ideas for that?
Um, well, I focusing that book, it went through um a, a name change, um, and it stuck on Through Her Eyes, and realizing, okay, that's what I wanted it to be. Um, I because originally, from for until the end, I believe, of my master's, it was actually called Beneath the Surface.
Ah,
And then I said, I don't know, I was doing probably the fifth edit of the entire work, and I said, you know what, it didn't match exactly what I wanted, what the stories were saying, and simply speaking about it, as I came up with that name. It's like, these are stories that are you will see through the eyes of the woman, and it clicked right there. And then when we got to the cover, I was going through different photos of women, close up, close photos, close up to their faces and stuff like that. So, and I wanted that the feeling of you're seeing into the person's eyes, but you also feel as if you're looking through it. And I spoke to, and I gave a inspiration photo to the graphic artist, and he gave it to me back like this, with the different colors and everything, and I was like, this is it, this is exactly it, because that wasn't the original photo. And I was actually very happy that he interpreted it like this. You know, he got he understood immediately how to bring forth what I was trying to say in the cover photo.
Yeah, he understood the assignment.
Yes, very much so. And he's also the same person who did the raw cover photo as well. His
Ah,
name is King Lewis. Yes.
okay, all right. For those of you who are listening, make a note of that name just in case, you might just need his services as well.
Yes, and I could always share his Instagram handle as well.
Okay, we'll do that.
Yes.
So far, the genres of books that you've been doing so far, they're ones that persons aren't very comfortable with talking about, as you've indicated before. Do you see yourself switching from one genre to the next in any of your future books?
Uh, honestly, I don't know to be perfectly honest, because
Mhm.
I have realized that instead of writing for a genre, I tend to write and I allow the story to fit somewhere. It that, however, has been a little bit difficult with me finding a space for my writing, because for a long time I couldn't fit it anywhere. You know, there's romance, there's thriller, and I kind of just fit it. Ended up with saying that it's um, female literature, essentially, in a general sense. But that's usually my process. I get inspired by something. It could be a conversation, it could be watching people, it could anything like that, and I write. And a story comes out of that, and it fits the genre. So it's will, I guess, be a surprise what even to me what my next set of writing will neatly fall into, if it will neatly fall into anything, that is.
Mm. With your diverse skill set, in terms of editing, in terms of writing, etc., do you see yourself teaching or giving any kind of workshops where the publishing process and even writing is concerned to persons?
I have not actually considered that at all. Honestly, I've not considered teaching.
It just seems natural because obviously you have an understanding of the process. You indicated that you work very closely, with the editing aspect. You're a writer, you do writing, you manage social media. These are skills that other writers, it would be of use to them. So it just seems like the natural progression of things. I mean, when you get to the point where you have like where it seems that you come to that level of understanding, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you kind of come where you have to teach other persons, and when you teach other persons, you get another layer or level of understanding that you did not get as you were a student. That's just how I see things.
Right, right. Makes sense. I will definitely, consider
Uh,
taking it to that. Yeah.
in terms of your books, have you ever considered exploring a different medium to get to share the contents, for example, like audiobooks or even a podcast as well, where you read maybe excerpts of your book to persons?
I have considered audiobook for in particular for the erotic collection, but I have not um gotten somebody yet who is willing and who is able, all of that. So I will definitely, look keep looking to find somebody for that. I think that one will do best with audio.
Okay. Um, in terms of persons who might be listening into this podcast right now, who, after hearing your account, your story, might want
Mhm,
to explore the option of writing, or in particular, writing on hard topics or difficult topics that persons are not feeling comfortable to broach, what
mhm.
advice, what advice would you give to them?
Um, First of all, I think you as the writer should be comfortable speaking on the topics, um, mainly because they're hard. mainly because exploring certain avenues on that topic may bring forth some thoughts, some feelings, even create flashbacks in certain people of, of whatever. So you need to be at the point to be comfortable enough to speak on the topic, and speak with care and consideration. While in a fictional sense, because my stories are fictional, but I mean, listening to the news, watching, reading, doing all of that, it's not too far fetched as to any of these things happening. Writing that these things, incidences, these issues on a fictional level, it can become a little bit graphic, and you can choose how far you wish to go, how far you're comfortable doing that. And there's no right or wrong way to do it. But it also, as I said, again, it should be done with enough care and consideration for readers, for the topics, and also you should have some sort of focus and just not be writing in a vacuum just to write. It shouldn't just be you're just doing it just because. Especially with these topics, I always think that even with how you're treating it, there should be some motive, some main reason behind it. What are you trying to say? What are you trying to say at the end of the day should be the thing that is motivating you throughout the story. Yeah.
Right. Well said, ma'am. Well said.
Thank you. Thank you.
In the event that you want to get copies of your books through her eyes and raw, where can we get copies of these books?
All of my books are on Amazon, and you can search for me by searching my full name, Omega Francis, and my author page comes up. You can put my name, Omega Francis, and the title of the book together, and or you can visit my Instagram page, and that it would be Omega Francis _author. That's Instagram, and the link in my bio will send you straight to my author page so you can have access to that, to all the books.
All right. Okay, listenership, you've heard it from here. Omega Francis, and details about her book and herself and where you can get copies of them. Miss Francis, thank you very much for making yourself available.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay. All right. Well, you have a good evening then, ma'am.
You too. Thank you.
You've been listening to TLC, Tropical Literature Creators. If you've heard something of interest or something you like, reach out to us. Reach out to our authors. Follow us on social media. We look forward to hearing from you.